the topic of BRICS expansion and its development. And we can see a huge interest on behalf of parliaments of different countries. I would like to say that as for parliamentary dimension of BRICS, it has been in place for more than 10 years, different sites and in different countries. Prior to our chairmanship, that has always been one of the key priorities of the development, that is the parliamentary dimension. Why is it so important? It is very important how the peoples of our country respond towards BRICS, how people view BRICS. And the MPs who take part in the meetings at parliamentary level from different countries represent people, and they conduct an open dialogue with their colleagues from other countries. And the perspectives for the dialogues are rather large scale. What we mean is exchange of experience and best practices of legislators, which creates the basis for the development of cooperation on all key aspects of BRICS, which include counteracting global challenges, terrorism, extremism, illicit drug trade, transnational crime. And such interparliamentary dialogue plays a crucial role in the development of multilateral cooperation of BRICS and in active promotion mutual interests on world arena. And the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation, as well as other members of BRICS, do everything to improve and enhance the role of BRICS and its influence on the legislative processes through the entire comprehensive complex of partnership cooperation on key areas such as policy and security, economics and finance, and of course, culture and humanitarian cooperation. Special stress during Russian chairmanship is put on the increase of foreign coordination and promoting mutual interest of member countries at international parliamentary platforms. And such platforms do exist, which is Parliamentary 20, and a whole range of international platforms. It is very important for our actions to be well coordinated with those of our colleagues from BRICS member states. It is also necessary to look for efficient solutions to challenges that we face in terms of security and stability. MPs will do everything possible in legislature to strengthen trade cooperation of the member states, to provide legislative regulation of the energy sector and food security. It is necessary to enhance the role of BRICS in the international finance system and expand the use of national currencies in settlements. It is one of the key topics nowadays. It is necessary to create a settlement payment system that would be independent of foreign currency and foreign banking system. This is one of the key directions of the development of our economic links. As far as you understand, this is especially important for Russia. When our banking system was cut off from the international settlement system, that was a problem. Now, more than 80% of all our settlements are done in national currencies. And as for our colleagues in BRICS, that is the major trend. Dear colleagues, in a month here in St. Petersburg, we will have an anniversary 10th Parliamentary Forum, which is going to be called the Role of Parliament in Strengthening Multilateralism for Just World Development and Security. At this forum, I hope that all member states will be present, including the new members, of BRICS and those who are willing to join BRICS. It is going to be a rather representative forum. We will be talking about the national legislation being in line with the joint legislation of BRICS countries in pursuing the national goals of development of member states and legislative promotion of partnership to 2020. Within the framework of BRICS on legislative level, it will be necessary to create all the positive condition for diversification of chains of supply chains and digitalization. Much attention during Russian chairmanship is to be paid to the development of logistics and transcontinental routes, as well as energy issues, tourism, ecological security, and a whole range of other issues. We will view the issues of convergence of legislative developed countries in terms of combating terrorism and extremism, illicit drug trade, and arms, providing international information security. Also, the agenda will include further cooperation on interparliamentary platforms, parliamentary summit of the G20 group, and further development of parliamentary forum of BRICS. Most likely, this forum will require a certain institutionalization. There is a certain protocol from last year's forum, the Memorandum of Understanding that was signed in September 2023 in Johannesburg during the 9th Parliamentary Forum. And it stipulates the creation of the standing administration of the Parliamentary Forum, which is very important, for it allows to annually take all the necessary steps to enforce our joint documents. I would like to invite everybody to take part in the events of the Parliamentary Forum here in St. Petersburg. Thank you very much, Alexander Dmitryevich. I do have one question. BRICS is one of the most dynamically developing international organizations. It is one of the most dynamically developing international structure in the world. But we don't think about limiting our international contacts with those who are called non-friendly countries. As for parliamentary contacts, what are they in terms of our colleagues from European Union? Is it necessary to have contact with them? We did have extensive contacts and links with our colleagues from European Union. Russia did. Yes, we do know about Russia, but as for BRICS and Parliamentary Forum, do these platforms have links with the European Union? The thing is that our colleagues from the European Union are not ready today for such cooperation, for such contacts. I think that BRICS is an absolutely different organization in its essence. As for the West, there is one host who does everything to create the preferential conditions for the member states of the European Union. As for BRICS, the situation is quite the opposite. The principles are absolutely the opposite. The principles are equitability, equality of all the member states, and I have already mentioned them. BRICS is open for cooperation with the European Union, but since the principles are absolutely different, Europe and the US do not want to reject their colonial approach. Colonial approach, you mean, yes. You have heard discussions about the Garden of Eden and the jungle. I suppose that it said a lot. In here, in BRICS, we're talking about equality and mutual respect. the desire for each country to implement its own interests in consensus. And as for the West, the key ideas are domination, pressure. So far, I do not see any viable perspectives of cooperation between organizations, for they are focused on different principles. Thank you very much, Alexander Zhukov. I do know that you are very pressed for time today, and a tax session on taxation is to be attended by you. It is one of the hotspots of the Russian policy today. We do see the changes in the taxation system of the Russian Federation, and we are introducing a very soft, in my opinion, too soft and progressive taxation scale, which, according to the public view, is more fair and more just. And when it is time for you to go to that session, you are free to leave our session, for we do understand that your role is very important in that session. And according to our agenda, I would like to give the floor to José P. Borges, Chairman of the Board of Trustees of Brazilian Center for International Relations. I know that José is focused on the green agenda, and there is certain criticism towards BRICS, saying that a green topic is not well accentuated, is not accentuated enough. Is it true? Is it so? So, what do you think of that? Don't we focus enough on the green agenda? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kiseliev. Thank you, Yanzong, for the invitation to participate in this panel. And also would like to thank our wonderful hosts from Sputnik, Vasily, Artyom, Anastasia, Christina, all the other wonderful guests that hosts that we had here. And I would also like to greet the colleagues that I met in the last few days. Through the first one I met, Ahmad. I'm very pleased to be here. Well, to talk about a new order, I thought that we should talk about, we should start comparing with the old order. And what was the old order? The old order could be understood as the G7. The G7 were the 7 largest economies in the world many years ago. When it was created, it was more than 40% of the GDP of the world, and mostly formed by Western countries, with the exception of Japan. But in 2020, the BRICS countries, before the expansion, overtook the G7 in terms of GDP, considering through the PPP, purchasing power parity. So the BRICS as a group, as economic group, became more important than the G7. The population of the BRICS was before the expansion 3.2 billion, whereas that the G7 was less than 800 million. So in terms of population, our group is much larger than the G7. And between 1990 and 2022, the BRICS per capita growth was 4.5% a year, whereas the G7 was 1.5. So it was basically 3 times. It grew 3 times as fast as the G7. Sadly, it was not all the countries. Brazil, Russia, and South Africa grew below the G7 at 1.3%. So it was mostly an Asian phenomenon, which started in the past century with Japan, and then Korea, and then Taiwan, and then mainland China already this century. And now lately, India is growing more than China, Southeast Asia, and Bangladesh. Even Bangladesh is growing at a very fast rate. So what were the consequences to the world of this enormous change that happened, which can be called the Asian century. I mean, the 21st century could be called an Asian century. For Brazil, for example, 25 years ago, Brazilian trade was divided almost equally between three groups: the U.S., the European Union, and Mercosur, the countries in South America. A little bit higher, the European Union, sometimes the U.S., and third, but very close, the Mercosur. Today, China represents 35% of the trade, of Brazilian trade. And U.S., European Union, and Mercosur are roughly between 12 and 13%. So almost one third of what we trade with China. But more surprisingly, Asia, non-China, is larger than the European Union. We are trading more with Asia, excluding China, than the European Union. So it's a new world that requires a new order. Brazil assumed the presidency of the G20 in November, succeeding India, and to be followed by South Africa at the end of this year. So curiously, the G20 includes all the countries of the G7 and all the BRICS countries, including the new ones. So the G20 could be used almost as a metaphor for what could be a new order. And what was the first thing that happened when Brazil assumed the G7? Then SEBRI, our center, was chosen to be the coordinator of the T20, the think tanks of the G20. We were approached by the G7, to proposing to have meetings between the G7 and the G20. And we said, well, it doesn't make sense, because all the G7 countries are part of the G20. So why should we negotiate as a group with the G7? The G7 countries are welcome to participate at the G20, but not as a group dialoguing as a different entity within the G20. So, and on the other hand, I think it's essential that all the countries participate, countries from that represent the old order, and the countries that represent this rising phenomenon that we are talking about. And Brazil, as an American country, South American country, and Western culture, we feel that it could be a bridge builder. We feel a responsibility of bridging these two cultures, that the culture of the European culture that inherit the European culture, and this new world that's arising this century. So what are the priorities that we've chosen to be discussed in the G20? First was climate change. And why? Because the G20 represents 85% of, before the expansion, represents 25% of the GDP of the world and 85% of the emissions of the world. So if it were possible to, within the G20, to take a few modest steps towards the challenge of climate change, I think it will be much easier to bring these agreements to the COP30 that's going to happen in 2025, coincidentally also in Brazil. So what could be some ideas that we could try to achieve within the G20? The first one would be a carbon market regulation. And a second one, I'm just giving examples, I'm not an expert in this subject, to have audited zero carbon reports for corporations to avoid the greenwashing, the people publishing numbers of in terms of carbon achievements that are not really true. But the idea that we have regarding the challenge of the BRICS countries and the poorer countries within the G20 is that economic growth is the best way to fight poverty. And the example of China is the most striking. China, 500 million people were lifted from the poverty level to the middle class in China, and a couple of hundred more million people in Asia through the growth. And what could be the main, what in our view will be the main drivers of growth in the next generation, in the next 25 years? We believe it's going to be energy transition and digital transformation. And so it's very, very important that the countries, the BRICS countries, don't lag behind in terms of energy transition and digital transformation. And it's interesting because both Russia, South Africa, and Brazil are large producers of oil and gas. And but still, we are challenged with this process of having to go through energy transition. And we see this not as a burden, but as an opportunity. We see that the three countries and all the countries within the BRICS have to go, have to be ahead in terms of the energy transition. And the same regarding digital transformation. I don't know if you read the last book by Henry Kissinger, The Age of AI, and he mentions that some countries that were behind in terms of like the financial system and other sectors jumped ahead because they didn't have the bank branches, they didn't have the ATMs, so the banking system today in certain countries is much more developed than the U.S., for example, that you still write checks and mail checks and send checks by mail because of the inertia of a financial system that existed for a long time. So we think that these two challenges, these two sectors will be the big main drivers of growth, and we should not allow ourselves to be behind in this process. And developed countries, like countries in Europe and even the US and Brazil in certain, sometimes are slower to adopt the changes that are happening in Asia, for example, in India, the digital platform and other advances that we are a little bit behind. So to conclude, we started comparing between G7 and the BRICS countries. In 2.5 countries, the West, in the last 2.5 centuries, the West has accumulated a large percentage of the world wealth, and is even giving the small population based on certain ideas of liberal economy, democracy, and all of that. But if I had to define the difference between the G7 countries and the BRICS, I would say that the G7 believes that these ideas should be universal. Everybody has to adopt the same ideas, and even in with completely different circumstances and historical circumstances. And I believe that the BRICS countries are much more flexible, and they accept differences between based on the historical, social, cultural, and even religious circumstances. So for almost 80 years after Bretton Woods, a global order when the global order was designed. Okay, I'm finished. And it worked very well for a long time, like the WTO, IDB, and all of that. WTO, as we all know, is paralyzed. IDB is small compared to the challenges of the world. So the world has changed, and the global order has to be reformed. There's a great Italian writer, Giuseppe de Lampedusa, that wrote a masterpiece called The Leopard. And the main character, the Duke of Salinas, at one point says, if one wants things to stay as they are, things will have to change. Thank you.
Да, спасибо большое.
Thank you very much, Mr. Josepio Burgos. We have one question addressed to you, to Alexander Zhukov, that is. Russia was among slowly developing, for the growth was 2%. What does economic growth now in Russia this year? As for the first 4 months of this year, the economic growth of Russia stands at the same level as last year. As for industrial production, its scale of growth is more than 5%. Thank you very much. And we are talking about unprecedented level of sanctions that are imposed on Russia. Some believe that sanctions act as an incentive and impetus for the development of Russia, and it led to the changes that resulted in such a rate of economic growth. You referred to the last year, but as for the figures of last year, what was the economic growth like? It was 3.6%. The economic growth was 3.6%. This year, we are planning slightly lower figures, but real life is above the forecast. Thank you very much. Thank you. We are moving forward, and I would like to give the floor to Victoria Panova to take your seat among the panelists, and I would like to continue, and I would like to give the floor to Shen, Director of the Center for BRICS Studies, Professor at the School of International Relations and Public Affairs, Fudan University of China. Mr. Shen, I would like you to give the floor, but please, I would like all of us to act in a democratic way. Please stick to the time limit. Otherwise, we won't have time for all the speakers. Remember that we have to conclude our session at the time specified in the timetable. And those who took the floor and did not comply with the time restrictions was undemocratic in their approach. For you took the floor somebody else's time. So please do not speak too long, for we need to give the floor to everybody. I have 3-4 minutes. As far as I understand, as for the world order, we have several aspects. Our moderator and host just mentioned that what we understand of the world order and the situation in the world. We are to follow the historic continuity, and we need to look back at the time and identify 3 periods that have come through. First is the Western period, BC, several centuries BC. There was no world order that is present now. The second period encompasses the time when Blinken at the Munich conference said that the world order is either you are the dish which is served, or you are the guest who is served the dish. That was the colonization period and the extensive colonialism policy. All the states in their form have obtained a certain status of independence, but there are some scars from that era. Nowadays, economics inherits a lot from the previous eras. And we are now in the stage of globalization. What we see is that in general sense, this is the Western world order. The US, as well as Western countries, exercise their benefits. The first gets everything, and they continue the hegemonic world order. According to the economic theory of Western countries, now China is under the challenge. According to them, China poses a challenge and China is an aggressor. But in our opinion, the US is an aggressor. It is seen through formal equality and formal compliance with certain rule and word order. But as for formal word order, it is absolutely different. As for the economic development, we can see significant differences. We do understand that the way how world order is estimated is changing. BRICS and other developing countries has key priorities, and they are the same around the world. The question is, will it be possible to continue economic development and to provide economic development and to provide well-being for all our citizens? We're facing such difficulties as of the question of allocation resources. The US is the key beneficiary of the international system, but during the elections, the leaders are chosen who have less rights to act like that. The American people do not have the freedom from internal hegemony of the US, and it's necessary for us to learn certain lessons from that. We are under the evolutionary transition period in the world order, and we are to comply with these practical reforms. Of course, there are certain risks. We are to see them and manage them. And all new reforms that are to be in place are to focus on people. People are to directly benefit from all the reforms. We are the key developing country, and the people of our country act as the beneficiary of all our reforms in harmony with nature. And the final thing that I would like to mention is that nowadays BRICS countries, as well as all developing countries, are in a situation which has never been known to the world, when we can obtain a qualitative reform. We are to bridge certain differences and use this magnificent historical opportunity to obtain great results. Thank you, Mr. Shen. That was a speech in the spirit of BRICS dynamics, very brief and very emotional one. I would like to pay your attention to the fact that Mr. Shen said that American people was not and did not become the beneficiary of the processes that take place in the US. And Putin, the president of the Russian Federation, yesterday at the meeting with international news agencies, spoke very clearly about that. Now, the US is burning itself, and the processes that are taking place in the US is a self-extermination in a way. And this is why I have a question to Fudan Tambu, Executive Director of the Institute for Global Dialogue, South Africa. I believe that South Africa is a germ in BRICS organization. I love the country, and I've visited it multiple times. My question is the following: what are the hopes that South Africa has towards BRICS, and what can it do for the benefit of BRICS?
Thank you very much, Chair. I think there's several ideas that South Africa is basically proposing and would like to see through when it comes to this expanding grouping. And it's important to understand the dynamics of BRICS cooperation in a multipolar world order. The first is just to note that a lot of these changes we are seeing have been accelerated by the pandemic. So these geopolitical factors that we continue to see have been accelerated by it. They are accelerated by what's happening in Ukraine, and they are also accelerated by the ongoing war in Gaza. What's important, and I think this was an important innovation also that South Africa introduced, is we are seeing the growing role of regions, of regional powers, and also of regional organizations within the BRICS. We have seen this particularly since South Africa was brought into the BRICS, and when South Africa hosted the summit in 2013. South Africa at that time insisted and pushed for the inclusion of Africa, African states, but also of regional economic communities within Africa. This was an important innovation because what we then saw after 2013 was after each particular host country took on their respective summits, they also extended invites to their various regional partners. And so what that began was a process of BRICS expansion, even though in an informal manner, because each of the BRICS countries essentially became the catalyst for creating greater interests within their respective regions. And I think this was an important innovation. We saw it from South Africa. We then saw it when Brazil hosted. We then saw it when Russia hosted, expanding it to the Eurasian Economic Union, China, but also India. And this is something that created momentum for what we see now in an expanded BRICS grouping. And this was very important, and previous speakers have highlighted the figures. We don't have to go back in that. But essentially what is important is that an expanded grouping is adding additional demographic weight, it's adding additional economic weight, it's adding additional resources also to the grouping. And when you just think about the resources that are being added and the projections going forward, it's quite clear. Even the IMF projects that the BRICS Plus countries will account for 37.6% of world GDP at purchasing power parity by 2027. And this is quite important compared to the 28.2% from the G7. And so when we think about the additional resources, let's take one of these resources. Think about energy. Energy, with the addition of Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, and of course we know what Russia adds to that equation, BRICS countries now produce about 44% of the world's crude oil. And importantly, the BRICS now accounts for very important consumers of energy and also very important producers of energy. Now, if we can tie that resource wealth with the reform of the global financial architecture, while safeguarding the resilience of regional and global value and supply chains, we will really add to the agency that BRICS has. Because if we increase the trade amongst BRICS members in alternative, and we move towards alternative payment systems, then you're already making a substantial contribution to a multipolarity within the international financial architecture. And I think this is going to be quite important. So these are some of the things that I think, countries like South Africa would like to see, because they would like to see that the grouping continues to focus on the reform of the international financial architecture, whilst ensuring tangible development objectives are met by the respective countries and their respective regions. As a last point, Chair, when we think about this, if you tie in the natural resources these countries have, you tie in the human resources they have, and the financial resources, that they have, it's quite clear that the adoption of a system that addresses the fragmentation of the current financial payment and settlement system outside existing Western-led systems will become important. And there are very concrete ideas that are being put out that include the use of central bank digital currencies as tools for facilitating payments amongst BRICS countries and interested partners. So the use of technologies and blockchain will also accelerate this movement so that the financial system that the BRICS countries are operating under is free from political interference and the weaponization of the dollar that we have seen. And through that, we will accelerate the possibility of increased and sustained development amongst the grouping and raise the interest amongst non-BRICS members to participate in various BRICS activities. Thank you, Chair.
Спасибо.
Thank you very much. And I see enthusiasm in your eyes as far as BRICS is concerned. And this is what actually gives us power. Thank you for your valuable ideas. And this is indeed true that BRICS is offering to the world this attractive idea of being myself. Nobody is forcing anybody to do anything. Our idea is be yourself. Don't be ashamed of it. And we'll accept you the way you are. We'll be friends with you. We'll cooperate with you. And you don't have to change. That's the most beautiful things in the cooperation between people and countries. So thank you very much that we are on the same page here. And I think that the Arab world is now making its strategic choice. Why? Because the Arab world wants to be itself, to protect its civilization and modernize at the same time. And BRICS is giving this opportunity to those countries. So what are your motives? What's your contribution? I'm giving the floor to Ahmad Almohayani, Economic and Strategic Foresight Advisor, Royal Commission for Al-Ula. You have the floor.
And the pleasure to be here today to give some speech about what is the BRICS is trying to build on. And definitely to be yourself and you have your own missions and you have your own values is important for each countries to build on your own cultures and build on their own histories. And definitely that is not compromising for countries coming with the long histories. But in the same time, the world can share and work together in different level of themes. They can work together in first themes as in economic development. And where is the economic development is both of each countries in the BRICS, they have the same ambitions for fostering the economic growth and investment and trade as well. And definitely, they often work to emphasize the sustainabilities and the inclusive and in this development. And within the BRICS countries, we can see today how the world has been shifting in balance of trade and commodities, especially in the essential commodities like an oil, and even though with the technology transfer and knowledge asset as well. So there is a lot to accomplish in that pillars. Besides this is the multilateralism and to the new world orders, how we can have like a balance of decision making, representative that diversify of the global, and not only link it to the G20, where they have the only well-developed countries agenda, while in the other developing countries they're suffering and they are growing and they're catching up with the serving the communities, and definitely in the economic scales and development. And the third pillar for cooperations and open dialogue, especially when we are share the same fundamental in solving peacefully any conflicts in the worldwide, and that is moving to growing and impacting the global-wide economic growth and so on. So, from my personal perspective, the BRICS, they have a lot of, they already accomplished in the past 15 years major milestones, but there is a long journey to be accomplished in coming 2 decades, and there is a lot of quick win. They can work on it immediate to get that get the influence and the political positioning in the new world orders. So they can strengthen the domestic resilience by investing in infrastructure and technology, definitely, and with the human capital we have in this block, that can help us to navigate through the economic shock and uncertainties in coming years. Also, there is a lot to accomplish related to the economic, to promote innovations and create competitiveness in the key sectors, whereas we have like technologies, finance, and manufacturing. Also, beside that, there's a lot to accomplish in the new industrial, such as exploring the space, new energies, resourcing, and definitely the type of united skills and capacity they can to uplift to be on high skills to provide better commodities to the worldwide. And the third quick win is to ensure to the connectivities, and the logistic is being developed, and definitely that is coming with the whole supply chain blocked, whereas as my colleagues mentioned, now we have different positioning in the geopolitical positioning in the world that can help us to, after Corona is being shown that globalization is moving to nationalism, and that can support those blocks and BRICS with the new countries adding to the BRICS to make this happening. With also the same things is when we talk about the value chain. Definitely, we are in the BRICS. Every country, they have their own absolute advantage in certain of industrial or activities, where in the value chain we can build vertical and horizontally growing by our national resource and the economic factors such as labors and the lands and definitely the finance and technologies. When I think about how we can grow together, there is a lot of initiatives already been happening in the past, but is required to be pushing and to be faster and accelerate, such as the BRICS Development Bank, where they can invest in the connectivities of the logistic hubs and ensuring the commodities is moving around the world in very safe and very safe and in very lower cost and so on. In conclusion, just BRICS is a chance to putting hand in hands and to navigate through the new world orders and to providing a role model to the rest of the world, how to navigate through complexities of challenge and political area and economic growth area as well. Thank you so much.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much, Mr. Almohayani. And I think you would agree with me that every speaker shows this freshness of our relations among these states. It's like a honeymoon, that a man and a woman, newlyweds, have. I know we're only 15 years old, but historically speaking, it's not a big deal. It's not a long period. We're forging new plans, we're trying to get to know each other, and we still feel this freshness of our cooperation that'll last for generations because we realize the scale of our path, of our aims, and the purity of our feelings that lead us, that we're led by. And I think it's a big boost. It's a really important factor. In Russia, people say there are some things that are more important than money. This is more important, and money will come by. Will come to us as well. There's a country, India. It's the fastest growing economy among the biggest countries. So why does India need to be a member of BRICS? India is the whole civilization. Nevertheless, there is a BRICS Institute that is led by Mr. Binod Singh. Mr. Singh, why does India need BRICS? Can you tell us?
I'll speak
Thank you very much.
a bit Arabic. Okay. First of all, very excited to be here in this perfect weather. So this is the best time to be in Russia. So a wonderful host. Now I'll just jump to the topic here. This time is very important. I represent youth of India, and I want to share with you what India thinks of the BRICS, especially the youth in India. The fact, I don't have a huge research data to share with you. We need a lot of logistics for that. But based out of New Delhi and traveling across India, I want to share that the public opinion in India is a bit divided about BRICS. I'm talking on behalf of the civilians, not the government. Pachimo, why? My understanding is that the Sputnik or the Chinese media, Global Times, these are just famous in India for the last 5 years when the BRICS started. But still, when we open our home television or social media, the most famous media in India is YouTube or Google. So the perception about BRICS still going on, the SF coffee shop at the near Srishna is not serious. But in reality, in a week, I get email from European universities. Now already students in Europe, in Germany, in France, they're writing their PhD dissertation and MPhil and masters about BRICS. So they're taking it seriously, but the Western media is still saying that don't take BRICS seriously. So they have always this double standard, they talk something else. So this is my first point to share with you, that because global media still controlled, the opinion is controlled by the English language. So the largest country in the BRICS, that is India, still sometimes misinformed. So in the BRICS grouping, India is not pushing the weight or the kind of comprehensive support which we are getting from China, Kiseliev, or from Russia. I believe re-election of Mr. Prime Minister Modi for the third time. I believe re-election of Mr. Prime Minister Modi for the third time, although it was not a clear majority. There was some divided, and Western media has a role to do in our democracy. So still, I believe that we are going in the right direction. Our direction of BRICS is perfect. And today, I take small pride to comment that the BRICS Bank was possible because of our hard work in India. The first governor of BRICS Bank was an Indian guy. Now it is headed by President Duma of Brazil. So we have a lot of achievements in the small time of 15 years. We are young still. But I'm here today not just to claim what we have done, but to decide the future of our new world order. Russia, except the French Revolution, which was something still we try to understand what is the impact of French Revolution when the Chinese premier Zhou Enlai was asked by a journalist. But the Russian Revolution of 1917 and then Russia's transition to the market economy after 91 is something whole world is studying very seriously. And the success of China's transition gives confidence to India that India can also do it. And today the challenge for BRICS is why we are not able to move beyond talking, move beyond this conference. I mean, a very close partnership between India, China, and Russia. I have proposal 4T and 3E. We have clear advantage in energy sector. But still, like, although India is buying a lot, but again, is selling to the Western market, and the benefit of this has not exactly gone to the Indian people. Number two, the ecology. I do agree that the BRICS priorities and challenges are different in India or in Russia or in China. But as a humanity, if we are one family, one world, this is a Chinese slogan, one world, one family. I think the ecology is something we have to take it very seriously. Last month, there was a snowfall in Moscow. It was a surprise for many of us. So BRICS is not exactly focusing enough on climate change issues. I hope in future, if we have something like BRICS University, I think Victoria can lead this. So we can focus what are the common challenges. So number one point is energy sector. This forum is very right forum to discuss how we can do it. The main challenge is the transport, how do we do it from Russia to India, and the sanctions and the blockade. It's a challenge for humanity. Despite Americans are saying they're successful in sanction, the sanction has failed. Everybody knows, even a student knows that sanctions has not worked. So when we focus on energy, ecology, and the most important is entrepreneurship. So it was time when Indian students used to go to study MBA in USA or UK, but it's no more true now. Now most of my colleagues or my young friends from India, they choose China, Shanghai, Hong Kong to study entrepreneurship. So once in BRICS, we promote the culture of entrepreneurship, and we have some forums for this in BRICS. I think we can come out with new business models. We don't have to always go with the transaction and business models of the Western universities, okay, Wharton and whatever, or Harvard Business School. We have to promote our own business schools, business models, and transaction. So these 3E, energy, ecology, and entrepreneurship, should be the focus for coming decade for BRICS. And the 4T stands for technology. We always believe in Russian technology, but technology needs finance. We have to make it affordable for a lot of Indians, Now today we all buy Chinese phones because Chinese phones are very affordable. So one of my Chinese colleagues, they told me if there was no Chinese phone, it's very hard for Mr. Modi to talk about digital India because we have the highest digital payment system in India. The transaction numbers is very high in India. So technology has to be made affordable so that the masses, in different parts of the world can afford the high technology, including the talk about AI. Number two, I'm talking about talent. Nothing to brag here, but, we proudly supply talent to the world. So we have now Indian Institute of Technology in Dubai. We're also planning some IITs, Indian Institute of Technology, in different parts of BRICS countries. So the Indian education system has something to share with the BRICS countries, especially in the technology. And my colleagues from the BRICS members, they agree with me. So I will not focus more on that. So this was my number 2T, technology and talent. Again, for transport, we are looking to Russia in this forum also, like the different routes are being explored. But, we still have to go for the Chinese speed. We are not going to the speed of China. So our colleagues from Xinhua and different groups, they can help us how to, finish the project of 10 years in 1 year, 2 years. So the Kidaskia speed is very important. The last one is transaction. So for the last 4 or 5 years, every day I open my phone, I get a message that BRICS is going for a new currency. But sometimes it's the fake news. Still, we don't have consensus, Saglasna, on what mode of payment we can agree. For this, we need some innovative idea. Or right now, we are dealing in the national currencies, but sometimes it's not working for the small businessman. It's good for Gazprom, it's good for the richest companies in India, but for small SMEs, the transaction is stopping them to do more business between India, Russia, and China. So our focus is going to be, can we agree on some kind of arrangement for transaction and get out of the order? So these are my 4 T. This, I repeat, technology, talent, transport, and transaction. Now, to finish, I'm here to connect and to make new friends in Russia. I'm not going to give you a speech. So I just want to finish with 2 ideas. One is from China, that they always say the Chinese president will give a speech in the forums to Asians, Africans, Islamic, and he'll say, if China is rich and the neighbors are not rich, still China cannot enjoy that real progress. So countries like Russia, India, China, your country, very rich country, right? So there are many rich countries which can really help or take together our neighbors. So in Russia, the Central Asian countries, the Eurasian Union. In India, the South Asian, like Bangladesh, we always invite Bangladesh to BRICS. They wanted to join BRICS, but it will take some time for them. So they're part of BRICS Development Bank, but in future they may join. The economy is doing very good. So we hope the prosperity model is more wide. We are more open-hearted, and we believe in giving. Indian philosophy of Gandhi, Indian philosophy of Mr. Nehru, Russian philosophy of Leo Tolstoy, Chinese philosophy of Confucius is enough for us to create a new world order. We are creating a new world order, but we don't have a code of conduct for BRICS. We need a new charter for BRICS. We have 10 members now. So in future, on foreign policy, on Israel and Gaza conflict, on India-Pakistan issue, I think BRICS can have a common foreign policy, just like you have. We can dream it, despite we respect all the diversity and opinion. So my suggestion to the forum here, again in Chinese, don't do to others what you don't like to be done to thyself. That means this is the best foreign policy. We can exist peacefully, we can exist in prosperity, but if our neighbors are in problem, we cannot enjoy the prosperity. Thank you, господин.
Thank you very much, Mr. Binod Singh. I will say in Russian, not in Chinese, act as you will to be acted towards. I believe that is pretty much the same. You say that we need to move away from differences. No, we need to remain as we are, but everything is fine. We do have a great cultural background. Our next session, which is to take place in this hall as well, and a philosopher will be leading it, Alexander Dugin will be leading it. Will it be possible for BRICS to create a joint culture market? And I do think that this is a very interesting issue, very interesting question. I'd like to thank our speakers. We have several minutes more, but I do know that in here we have the representatives of the countries who are just interested in BRICS, who are just looking towards BRICS. And I believe that each speech has made BRICS more appealing for each of us. And as for education, you said that people go to foreign countries to get MBA, but this can be done in the Higher School of Economics, and the Vice Rector of the Higher School of Economics is present here. It is Victoria Panova. I know that you have great ideas that might be beneficial for BRICS. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank RIA Novosti and you in person and Xinhua and Liu Yanson for organizing this event, for inviting me to take part in this event. It is very important to discuss and to see where we stand and to see where we can move forward. I'd like to begin with a question that you formulated toward Igor Dmitrievich about interparliamentary cooperation with BRICS and not friendly countries, or so to say, Western countries. Not so long ago, we had a very important academia forum at the end of May, and I would like to say this distinction is present at the level of elites. As for common people, they do understand that BRICS is a constructive, positive agenda. As for our forum, many addressed us and asked to be able to participate, and people from US, Canada, Switzerland, Slovenia requested from us the right to participate. So these are the countries, a whole area of countries that are so-called non-friendly toward us, and the head of these states are not interested in constructive cooperation, but common people are interested in the fact that there's unhealthy relations that does exist between other countries because of the Western focusing on their hegemony, on their dominance, the West which doesn't want to reject the non-colonial ideas. And the opinion of the people is different from that. People want to cooperate, want to interact. And they understand it as well as we do, that BRICS is the nucleus of the future world order, of the world order, which stipulates just world order, where all the countries are equal, when there is no one superpower or hegemony, where respect is present, and where we can see inter-civilizational, cultural, religious cooperation. This is a very important point. We are different from them, of course we are. We do focus on other principles. We interact stemming from different principles, but we do not have our doors shut. And those countries that applied for joining, we interact with the countries, and we appeal to the people of the countries who are interested in cooperation conversation. As for BRICS, we are to focus on three key features. It's economics, politics, and education. These are the three pillars of BRICS. Very briefly about economics. It has already been mentioned that now 37% of GDP is BRICS plus. As for G7, I believe the figure is 29.9%. But if we look at the world Bretton Woods institutions, we can see a very unfavorable shift towards Western countries. We can see that IMF quota has not been reconsidered. Nothing has changed. There are discussions about the increase of the reserve of the funds, but as for the weight that is to be dependent on the countries and the population, and so on, I believe the Western countries has a weight of 43%. And as for BRICS, Russia has the weight of 17%. A similar situation can be seen in trade. If we talk about trade organization, the situation is a bit different. But since we can see that our countries are gaining more and more weight, the Western world is not anymore interested in the functioning of this organization, and they sabotage it through one of the organs of the structure, one of the bodies of the structure. BRICS is a soft power, which is very important for each member state. We are not revolutionists. We go through soft evolution. And some of the institutions that help to change the landscape, this is the International Development Bank that has already been mentioned by our colleagues, the new development bank, NDB, was created in Durban, and over 2.5 years the bank was created, and this is an unprecedented time frame. We can see that countries with uniform ideas, political stance, they cannot agree on creating a similar institution, whereas such non-homogeneous countries of BRICS were able to create such a bank within such a short time. As for settlement and mutual payments, that is related to our sovereignty and our independence. Without the fear of secondary sanctions, it makes it possible for us to continue trading with each other, so that it favors member states and the world majority. Very often we are forced by the West and other countries using the term Global South. But this term was imposed on us by the West, by the Western Theoretical School of Foreign Relations. And this term, in a way, reinforces the idea that we do have a Global South that always lags behind. But actually, some French scientists made research which shows that this help towards development is several times lower than the benefits that Western countries obtain from supporting the world majority, which makes the gap even larger time and time again. I do believe that we are the majority, we and the countries and the peoples who are focused on constructive development of intercivilizational dialogue and peaceful development. Now, very briefly, I would like to talk about the humanitarian interaction. Today is a very important day. It is the birthday of Alexander Pushkin, a very famous Russian writer. And this cultural cooperation, getting to know each other, is extremely important. And it is important to get to know each other not through these stereotypes. We currently live in the situation when the information space of our countries, including us and China, is not owned by us for 100%. It is owned by our Western counterparties. Very often we view the information about each other through the lens of what the West provided us, what Reuters agency sees in that. This is why it is very important to conduct such fora as today's fora. We need to discuss the formation of our information space, direct exchange of information, the possibility of education. One of the colleagues said that in China there are more and more Indian students, which is a positive trend. It is necessary to create a certain educational system. It is a rather challenging issue, but we do discuss it, for it has to include finance in that as well. Mobility is another very important aspect. Academic mobility for students, for researchers to visit the countries of each other, to learn the language, culture, traditions. And this is of great importance. This is why I believe it's necessary to discuss the integration of space, mass media space, information space, and the creation of a certain system of mobility for students and academia, researchers, which would allow to move around the countries without barriers and with certain benefits for each other. Humanitarian agenda is extremely important, and it forms the basis for the future. If you go to the US and Great Britain, it does not necessarily mean that you will get the best education possible. Certainly not better education than in one of the university of BRICS countries. We've made a leap forward in that direction. We do have great history of education. We use state-of-the-art practices. We interact with each other, and we are to promote it among our youth, among our population, among our citizens. And finally, what we need to focus on is a certain approach of BRICS countries towards our joint values. For joint values do exist. I believe that this is the next session that we're going to have, so it is more related to that. And I would like to invite all those present here today within the civil track. We have extensive work dedicated to the creation of the pool of values, of a document that we could refer to, from which we could proceed, understanding that on one hand we're absolutely different, but our difference is our strength. It is our positive aspect, and it can formulate the new world order. Thank you very much, Victoria. BRICS countries make the world majority, and they represent the world majority. After the autumn summit in Kazan, they will make the world majority. As for idea of getting to know each other from a third party, of course, it is not natural. We do need to create conditions so that information about each of us could access our countries directly. And our mass media agencies such as Sputnik, which is a world brand, we work for in more than 30 languages, get to know our mass media outlet, and we do create the awareness for the Russian worldview on the world order. Two more speakers are left from Russia. That is Professor Georgy Muradov, Deputy Chairman of the Council of Ministers of the Republic of Crimea, Permanent Representative of the Republic of Crimea and the President of the Russian Federation. Georgy Muradov is chemo professor, and he heads the studies on the Russian civilization. I believe that in the very quick rhythm, I will give you the floor. You are very pressed for time, but still the floor is yours. Thank you very much. I believe that you shared the key instrument that you have. I value it very much, and I believe that this is how BRICS is to look like. BRICS is a system not of mutual respect, but also of mutual protection, of respecting the security of creation, equal collective security, which is indivisible. It doesn't mean that we are to favor the creation of different blocks, by the way. If a thief enters your neighbor's apartment or your friend's apartment, you will definitely take measures and not allow the thief to take something from your neighbor's flat. It doesn't mean that you are going to shoot the thief, but you will find the ways to protect your neighbor. Likewise, our member states of BRICS, and I do believe that that organization is going to expand. This is the civilizational center of the world, and our world proceeds from civilizational polycentric basis. I would like to add the following. Much has already been said. I would like to say that everything has already been said, but I would like to add only one thing, that is the creation of mutually respect, of indivisible, mutually respectful system of our joint security. And it has been the center of opposition. One of the key factors, one of the impetus of change were the events in Ukraine in 2014. I'd like to say that these events were inspired by the West, and their aim was to incorporate Ukraine into the strategic plans of destroying Russia at the end. For the neighboring Russia is the key threat for the West, and the key aim is to get its resources and its possibilities. I would like to say that the key events, the detonator were the events in Crimea, was conducting the referendum, and Crimea, as a result of it, not remaining a part of Ukraine. Out of the historic period, for 23 years, it's been a part of Ukraine, and now it came back to its harbor. And we ask you to be respectful towards the choice that Crimea made, and to take measures on developing relationships with Crimea and other Russian regions which came back to their motherland. And the final aspect that I would like to stress, it is imperative not to allow the digital genocide of certain states. The West commits genocide in the spheres of sport and culture and all other spheres, and it can be opposed only by joint action. This is why our BRICS think tank, Research and Development Center, with journalists, experts, analysts who focus on joint concepts of our own development and counteracting unfriendly countries that want to and are trying to hinder the development of BRICS. This is what we are to take into consideration. Thank you very much for your valuable experience and your valuable ideas. I believe that this is what we're going to discuss at Kazan Summit. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of BRICS countries are meeting next week in Nizhny Novgorod in Russia. I would like to sum up what has already been mentioned today, and as the media agency, we will send this information to the governments of BRICS countries. And finally, I'd like to give the floor to Ruslan Yunusov, co-founder of Russian Quantum Center. Quantum plays a very important role in Russia today. So you're the final speaker. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. We're having a very interesting conversation today, and BRICS as a new formation that is going to become the majority and gives us new opportunities. Today we're facing sanctions in Russia, but the reverse side of those sanctions is opportunities. BRICS is now 1/2 of the world population. It's a huge market that we already have. It doesn't mean that they have the second half. They have 800 million, and then they have another half that we are going to compete for. So, of course, we're going to see a new world order being formed in terms of policy, education, finance, economics. As for finance, we now are facing challenge how to pay for things, and now this system that we've had for so long is in crisis. Does not respond to the present. As for chips, microelectronics, in the last 50 years, we've done a lot to develop this sphere, and the whole world has been involved in this process. And despite the fact that the U.S. wants to separate itself from China, it doesn't work because this supply chain is now being changed. And in this regard, BRICS has a big internal market, a lot of resources. We have scientific schools, scientific resources in Russia and in other states. We have to create new supply chains. We have to stay unique, and at the same time, we have to build new technological supply chains. For example, in Rosatom, we have super pure materials, and we'd like to integrate our technology in the BRICS market. Even Americans don't own the whole technological supply chains. Lithographs are being produced in Holland. $400 million is the cost of one piece of equipment. China cannot do that alone. Russia cannot do that alone. But we have some groups of specialists that consulted the experts from the Netherlands. And now we're talking about creating such equipment within BRICS. We want to be independent technologically. That's our main task for the next decade. And we have to value specialist experts that are going to be solving these issues. We see people from Uzbekistan, China, India. Our experts are going abroad to also give their expertise. We have to expand these processes so that it'll be long-term successful. Thank you very much, Ruslan, to you. Maybe I can give somebody a floor to finish up this discussion. Maybe somebody has something to say, that's the best chance to do so. Maybe we can answer a couple of questions from the audience. If not, I think I can say that it's my pleasure to thank my colleague Lu from Xinhua News Agency and give him a bird. I'm going to give you a firebird. Use this to raise a toast for development of BRICS. It's called Kohloma. Thank you very much to all of you. Please stay for the next session. I promise you it's going to be interesting.